Today we're beginning the 8.4 notes, which is graphing in vertex form. Okay, so we are first going to go over our vocabulary. So we're going to talk about even functions, not just even numbers. So even functions are symmetric over the y-axis. So for example, if you had a parabola that has a vertex on the y-axis, its line of symmetry is the y-axis, it would be an even function. It's symmetrical over the y-axis. So then an odd function is, it's kind of funky, symmetric about the origin, which means actually over the x and y-axis. So it's reflected twice, once over the x-axis, once over the y-axis. Or it's rotated 180 degrees. So what that looks like is like if you have a line going through the origin, if you rotated this line 180 degrees, it would be on top of itself again. So it is symmetric about the origin. Vertex form is the form we're going to learn today. It's y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. And it is different than, you don't have to write this down, but just kind of review, standard form of a parabola is y equals ax squared plus bx, plus c. So that's standard form, and today we're going to be learning vertex form. All right, a quick review here, all right, on these prerequisite skills, factoring. Remember, whenever you factor, you first say, is there a GCF I can factor out? Now, because this a value is negative, anytime that a value is negative, you want to factor out a negative number. So we're going to factor out a -3. So remember, we can show that because it just kind of helps us get the signs right. So we have -3x squared divided by -3 is x squared. 24x divided by -3 is -8x. And -48 divided by 3 is 16. So then we are going to factor inside this parentheses again. This is a trinomial. So that factoring is where we go what multiplies to AC, which is 16, and adds to B, which is -8. So that's going to be -4 and -4. So remember, what we do then is we use our box. This is from chapter 7. We learned all of this, but we're keeping it fresh, not only because we'll have a cumulative final at the end of the semester, but also because we will be using factoring throughout this chapter, the next chapter, in Algebra 2, many different places. So I did not go over every step of that because we have factored so many times at this point from the last chapter until now. So we factored out the GCF and we had x minus 4 and x minus 4. So we wrote those as factors. That can also be rewritten as -3 times x minus 4 squared. And that would be our answer. Okay, let's learn even and odd functions. That's going to be focused on this video, and then we'll start a different video for graphing. So a function is even when f of -x equals f of x. So that's the important part right there. Okay, I know that makes no sense yet, but I'll show you what that means. Odd is when you plug in -x to f of -x equals -f of x. So those are the two things you need to know. So if we were to be making a note card for a test, then we would want to at least put this, if not maybe a full-on example. Okay, so let's find out how we do this. So what you do when you want to tell even or odd, and it could also be neither if it's neither even or odd, you go ahead and you plug in -x. So you're going to plug in -x everywhere there is an x. So I plug -x in right here. So this notation just shows, hey, I'm plugging in -x to function f, and I plugged in -x right there. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to simplify. So I'm going to still have f of -x, that's just the title. 2 times -x is negative 2x. Now, if it is even, then when you plug in negative x, it will simplify to the original function that you have. So what that means is if it is even, when I plug in negative x, it will go back to the original, which was 2x, okay? So notice when I plugged in negative x, I plugged it in here, I simplify it, this is not the same as the original, this is not 2x. So therefore, this is not even. So not even. So you always check even first. Now, if it is odd, okay, so if it is odd, I'm going to have to go ahead and draw a little line between us. All right, so if it's odd, when you plug in negative x, it simplifies to negative of the original. So whatever the original was with a negative in front of it. So look at this. If you took this function, this negative 2x, if you factored out a negative, it is negative, and then inside was the original, the 2x. So it's like negative of the original equation. The original equation was 2x. So this is odd. This is a really hard thing to learn, so we're going to go over several, and we're taking it nice and slow. So if you had not written these down right here, then I would go ahead and pause the video and write those down. Okay, let's try another one. So you always start with checking for even. So the very first thing you're going to do is you're going to plug in negative x wherever you see an x. So when you plug it into the g of negative x, that's just telling you that I'm plugging in negative x to function g. Now I plug it in to the other x, and I'm going to simplify. So negative x squared is negative x times negative x. That turns into positive x squared. Okay, so now we look at it. Is what we had right here, is this the same as the original? Yes, it is. It's exactly the same. They both say x squared minus 2. So when we plugged in negative x, we got something exactly the same as the original. So therefore, this is called an even function. So always check even first, and if it works out for even, then you don't have to check odd, you're just done. Okay, so let's check this one out for even first. So remember, we always start by plugging in a negative x everywhere there's an x. So this equation has 2 x's in it. So I'm going to plug it in everywhere. So the h of negative x just is then telling the reader I plugged negative x into function h. Now, it's 2 times negative x squared is negative x times x. I'm sorry, negative x times negative x, which is x squared. All right, and then plus a negative x is the same as minus x, and then minus 2. All right, so what you ask yourself is this the same as the original? And what we mean by that is it the same as this, 2x squared plus x minus 2? Okay, it is not, so therefore it is not even. All right, so now what you do is you check and see if it's odd. So you take this equation right here, and you factor out a negative, okay? So what we're doing is we're factoring out a negative. So if we take a negative out, we get negative 2x squared plus x plus 2. So now what you want to know is this negative with whatever the original function was in the parentheses? So is this thing right here in the parentheses the same as the original in the problem? No, it's not. So therefore, it is not odd. So that just means it is neither even or odd.